the whole concept of labor changed. Okay, I think we are on. Yeah, I think we are on. Right. Let me go through this process where I stop and then I share again. Okay, so we are looking at labor and development, a historical experience. This unit is talking about. Are you able to hear my voice, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you are able to see the slides also?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. So this unit is talking about historical experience, but in the historical experience, a large part of the unit is devoted to the economic side. Okay, just a sec. So the way the unit has been written has been predominantly on the economic side. As last time when we were looking at the various perceptions on labor, one of the major important perception, as Jyoti had mentioned about politics and political process, uh, again, this is, a nuanced topic in terms of labor and how the development of, the labor happened. And it cannot be done in a unit per se, but what conveniently the SLMs have done, or the units have done, is try and break it down into various subsections for you to get a taste of and a broader understanding. So inevitably you are not expected to be an economic students to understand the economy or economics of it, but to get a taste of how it works and how over history did labor move. And as you go through the unit and as you will go through the presentation, you will suddenly realize that it's almost like everything goes through a 360-degree circle. Whatever we start with historically seem to come back. It's like fashion. Whatever fashion is there goes out of fashion and then come back later in a different way, the same fashion. Similarly, let's look at how the historical experience happened. So objective evolution of labor practices, worker experience. So as soon as we say worker experience, we are delving into sociology. But again, if you notice, we have been noticing one thing over the last three units is the fact that inevitably growth and development are used interchangeably. Growth is more in terms of, increase or reduction of size. So it's more of a quantity term, whereas development is more of a quality term along with quantity. So, evolution of labor practices, work experience, historical approach to analyze transformative capacity of worker, grass dynastic or worker perception. So, these are the objective. Form of labor and experience are product of production relationship and nature of development. And remember, because labor is an innate part of the human being, and every human being who works is providing labor, and human being is not a material quantity or a material element. It has, feelings, it has understanding, it has rationality, it has logic, there is a psychology to it. Plus, again, human beings do not exist as independent individual entities. They are connected with each other in communities, institutions of marriage, into caste, into race, into ethnicity, and all kinds of stuff. And all these things interplay onto the final product, which is called labor. A small percentage of the workers are better paid and avail benefits of productive labor, collective bargain, while others slog long hours. So, a small introduction. And the way the unit has done is it has divided into early modern 1500s to 1790, then 1800s future, because these were broad, big categories in which you are trying to identify or see the movement of labor. The world economy underwent growing commercialization, militarization, and monetization, and there is a lot of politics which come into this. Feudal economy based on serf labor, a decline partly because of frequent revolts. Now, because we are not looking at the sociological part, we do not know what happened in terms of society formation, in terms of how movements or anthropology, in terms of movement of people, in terms of migration, in terms of other issues which happened. So for example, when we are talking, when later in this unit we talk about industrialization, we forget the fact that a larger element was the fact that there was the invention of the printing press, which started the mass media revolution. The printing press allowed more and more people to get educated or to gather information and knowledge. That also led to people experimenting. And also, we need to understand that before all this, as more as people were able to, or doctors or medicine professionals were able to unravel health disease and try and control the illnesses, things changed. The expansion of market led to greater division of labor, improvement in productivity through specialization. And then you will also see how from 1500 to today, how it has gone in more like a cyclical pattern. The expansion of market led to greater division of labor, improvement in productivity through specialization of labor. We are talking about 1500 to 1790. There were three types of labor. Largest labor, semi-commodified peasants who gained freedom and mobility in Western Europe. Now, again, also need to understand that a large understanding of ours is again the Western way it has been explained, because more often than not, hang on, sorry, again, this is just a minute. My keyboard and the mouse both create a wonderful concoction. Okay. We also we also need to understand how this is moving in terms of the politics part of it. And most of our understanding, see, for example, it says large section of labor were gained freedom was in Western Europe. What about Asia? What about China? What about India? How was the labor movement at that time? A lot of it is because of lack of documentation, but a larger part of it is because of the fact most treatises or most writings have been done by the Western scholars. In fact, that is where a lot of work needs to be done on the Orient side, the Asia, the East Asia, the South Asia. More information, unless it is plugged in, we will always have a skewed understanding, and that understanding of the Western hemisphere. The artisans such as weaver, ironsmiths, carpenter sold their products either from home, which also would be similar to India and China. Some of them were employed to manufacture textile, military wares, and other stuff. Military and conquest and wars have been a major movement in terms of innovation. If you would have been following news, there is this news about exploding electronic devices in Lebanon. Now, think about the innovation and think about how the whole concept of war and understanding of war has changed. And today, for example, war and military, for example, internet came out of the Cold War. It was a military thing which was established by the Americans to counteract the Soviet, and today we are taking the benefit of internet. Hang on. Yeah, Aisha, see, the world has always been scary in a particular way. Unfortunately, it's the way human construct happens, where we feel we are protected by various elements, But you see, we are entering the same, in terms of cyclical way. What we started was before civilization, where there were big animals. Every minute was, you do not know whether you'll be eaten by an animal or, and continuous wars and continuous, fights and conflicts. So the world has always been like this. Possibly today it's become more scary in the sense that instant information reaches you. A few decades back, the conflicts used to be the same. You did not get the information. Today, because of the faster means of communication, you are able to get information at the same time. People get, are influenced by each other to try new stuff. Okay. Artisan labor was almost wholly commodified, so it moved from agriculture into artisan. Position of free market operators often modified when they accepted advance. Something what you will understand happens even today. The new morpho organization of production known as putting out system developed in the age of commerce. So now, obviously, there was a commodification which was happening. There was a privatization which was happening. Obviously, it also led to the the prevalence of currency. Initially the currency was gold or gold coins or silver coins. It slowly moved into paper currency, and you will see how, as the society moved, the economy moved, everything else moved. In fact, technology always follows society. So you will see, as the world war happened, and women, because men went to fight in the war and women moved into industrial production, obviously there was a large amount of kitchen items or mechanization of things which happened to help the women cope with both working outside and working at home. We will see it in the course of the presentation. The division of labor by gender was all pervasive. Even within the same, men were bricklayers, women were brick carriers. Still happens. If you see construction site, men do a particular task, women do a particular task. So from 1500, we are talking about the 21st century. From 16th century to 21st century, some things have almost changed and still remained the same. Women labor was largely unremunerated in terms of money, often subsumed within family income, which also seems to be very similar to today. Socio-economic process of commercialization and proto-capitalism, what was also called merchant capitalism, set up from the 16th century. In fact, everything you see would dovetail into each other. With merchant capitalism coming, obviously, the Western European countries decided to take voyages to get to find out more in the world, led to colonization. Colonization also led to World War, also led to other things. Their numbers grew and they enjoyed relative benefits. Commercialization involved slow corrosion of guild system. So, simultaneously, as economy, the society was moving, the economy was moving. Everything dovetails into each other. And never ever, there is a deterministic way things move. There are many things which happen together. It is only when you look at media, reports onto certain things, it appears deterministic, but it is never the case. High demand for labor improved working people's bargaining power. It was accompanied by the fact working families devoted higher labor time, family labor to work to wage work. Economic phenomena known as industrious revolution. Now, industrious revolution was the precursor to industrial revolution. In fact, industrial revolution is a term coined by a Japanese demographer to describe Japan. So there is now something from the East which is plugging in into the Western discourse. More often than not, again, as I said, the global South's general academic studies do not get plugged into the larger academic discourse. It is only now things are moving with scholars from South America, Africa, South Asia, Asia, plugging in their research. As the economic situation of artisans improved, they sought an amelioration of the social status. The change was caused by development of money relations and the broader market effect. So now money relations was coming into. We are not exactly determining at what time we have. The SLM has given a broad category of 16th century to 18th century. It's a it's a big time. 200 years. 200 years is a long time. Then came the Industrial Revolution, 18th century. Now, also understand one of the reasons why the Industrial Revolution started off in Western Europe, predominantly started with Britain, was the capital provided by the colonies. In the absence of the capital, the Industrial Revolution may not have happened. Population of Britain and other European countries began rising significantly. First sign of economic transformation was increase in agriculture productivity, making it possible to feed the rising population, led to profound changes in how rural people. Also started was the privatization. The privatization led to redundant labor. Large-scale mechanized agriculture served market to over kind of subsistence farming. Enclosure movement, which was privatization, converted commonly held grazing lands into private property. Many left their agrarian lives and headed for towns and cities to find employment. So inevitably, remember in one of the classes, one of the persons had asked that, when we are doing a welfareism of giving food grains or certain things to people, people will not work. That never is the case. Inevitably, it is the industrious nature of human beings that even if you get something, you will work for something more. Advances in industry, growth of factory production accelerated the trend towards urbanization in Britain. And now we are talking about urbanization, which will lead to further sociological changes, economic changes, and the whole process becomes more complicated. Industrialization occurred in Western Europe from turn of 19th century. It brought into existence factory workers, use of mechanical power devices, growing division of labor distinguished their work. Again, as I said, this all was because of the capital generated by the colonies, which was taken by the colonizer and then pumped into technological advances and the Industrial Revolution. Such industrial reorganization was a response to high wage economy. So, there is labor, then labor gets skilled, it demands higher wages. The higher wages lead to, more skill. It leads to a depression, a depression, or more labor comes in, which will lead to depression of wages. It goes cyclical. The capital amassed from exploitation of colonial resources, coerced labor, and then besides the capital, they needed labor. They needed much more labor for the industries to function, and that's where the slaves came in. The whole American, continent was filled with slaves, which were taken from Africa. Slaves were taken from Asia. There were a lot of Chinese slaves, which helped America build their railroad system. Industrial workers worked over long hours, a real income dropped, workers began to organize themselves to fight for improvement. So their thing improved, but then the slaves came in, wages dropped, then they again organized themselves. Artisans who were losing jobs to new machines, and then everything innovates to new machines, attack machineries. They were known as Luddites. They also sought to reinforce rules of apprenticeship, to restrict oversupply of workers. Use of machinery and the modern continues to increase on its scale, spread to new areas. And technology inevitably, because it leads to better production or more efficient production, cannot stop. So what typically happens is that, and that's where policymakers, governments come in to see how. So for example, even if there's a robotic economy where every production is done by robots, remember there will be people who will create those robots, train them, uh, work with them. Things keep on changing. In fact, for example, when India started bringing computerization, there was a lot of resistance from trade unions. They feared work will go, people will be laid off. But if you see, with computerization coming in, the whole labor force moved into other areas, ancillary areas with computers. Workers now synchronize their work effort with high-speed machinery, slowly organized in labor unions, and labor unions started. With industries started labor unions. Now we are talking about 1800 to 1940. This is the time of industrial, labor. It is the time of colonial labor. They demanded reduction of work hours, prohibition of the employment of children, the schooling facility for children, payment of improved wages. So you see again how society keeps following economy, and society keeps linking with each other. The International Working Men's Association agitated over demand for an 8-hour workday. ILO had already come into existence, promoted Convention of 8 hours in 1990. Now, remember, it is not as simple as it appears to be. Obviously, there is a lot of lobbying and politics which come into it. We will see somewhere down the line as to how politics come into the picture. This achievement of working class accompanied other contrary development known as Fordism and Taylorism. So these two terms were brought in with the coming of Industrial Revolution, Fordism and Taylorism. So what are these two terms? These are important terms. Fordism is an industrial engineering and manufacturing system, serves as the basic, and this was done by, the concept was named after Henry Ford and the Ford manufacturing line. The Industrial Revolution talked about a manufacturing line where similar products, exactly similar products, are produced in mass. Basis of modern social and labor economic system that suppose industrialized, standardized mass production. There is another term for it, which is called the McDonaldization. So whichever McDonald you go, you'll have the same burger, same types of burgers, same fries, same packets, same everything same. We, in fact, today in the 21st century have moved post-industrial. We have moved into post-industrial, time. We are into an information time. We are into an information revolution. From industrial revolution, we have moved into an information revolution. Used in social, economic, and management theory about production, working condition, consumption, everything is systematized in terms of how it is done. Came to signify modernity in general. Advanced capitalism centered around American socio-economic system in place of the post-war economic boom. As a form of social life, Fordism is characterized by mass media, mass transport, mass politics. And if you notice, today we are in an era of individual or personalized media, personalized transport, personalized politics. So we are going back whole into a 360-degree circle. We started from individual, we went into a collective, we have again come into an individual. The second concept is Taylorism. So Taylorism is based on an American mechanical engineer, Frederick Winsor Taylor, scientific management. It is scientific management. It was one is attempt to apply science to engineering, what we define as industrial engineering. Industrial engineering is typically on Taylorism. Analyzes and synthesizes workflow. Main objectives in improving economic efficiency, labor productivity. Where should we place which item? How would the movement happen? How would labor go? What are the processes which work in Taylorism? Relation between employee and...
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Bolo, bolo.
but what I wanted to say was when we are talking about Fordism and McDonaldization, it's just not about, you know, the mass production and, that, but it also is about cultural globalization, isn't it?
So listen, all these things, when we are talking about Fordism or McDonaldization, it happened it happened from the start of the Industrial Revolution. Assembly, basically an assembly line, a standardized set of products. Now, please understand it. This would also lead to major changes in terms of society. So if a factory works if there are factory works in shifts, and there is a, let's say, a shift from 8 to 2 or 8 to 4, then your whole family society works around that shift. So all your social systems, and this was predominantly a capitalist model based on American social values. Remember, Henry Ford or Fordism started in America.
Yes, sir.
So now look at it. Now there's a very interesting thing. So industrial revolution started. Big industries came in. The workers were segregated into division of labor into high skill, low skill. This thing, blah blah blah, and all these. And then the sociologists started writing about development based on this Western concept of industrialization. Now understand this: the large part of global South is still colonized. And what colonization did to the colonies was they actually deindustrialized, made more people in the colonies peasants or underdeveloped. In fact, there was a reverse development in the colonies because all the capital and all the resources were taken into Europe and the Western Hemisphere for their industries and so on and so forth. Now, when the colonies got independent, all these sociologists and scholars and thinkers had already got a template of development, which most of the colonies were more than happy to pick up and say, this is the way development happens. Devpragya?
Yes, sir.
So inevitably, all these things get linked. And these were linked based on the fact of industrialization coming in the West. And then these models became templates for everybody to follow without actually understanding that each society is different, each country is different, each way people would react to things are different.
Hmm.
Am I making sense with the question that you asked?
Yes, sir. I mean, I just did not. I was looking at, only one side, but then it's a whole. Yes,
It
I
is
understand
so
now.
so that is why, as I said, these units get you to get a taste of the economic part of it. But at the same time, we need to understand that economics or economy does not work in isolation. It's not a watertight compartment. It is
Hmm.
linked to, and labor are human. Humans work in societies. Societies works with sociology. Plus, there is this history part of it, there is an anthropology part of it, and there are migrations, there are innovations, there are multiple factors, and to add to it is politics.
Hmm.
So there are all these things at play, and in all these things at play, things are coming out. So what we are doing is just looking at a snapshot. We are like sitting in a cinema and seeing the film roll by. So ours is not to make a value judgment. Ours is to see a perspective and then understand, oh, so this is how this is it. And then we also understand that today, for example, when India got independent, one part of India, the Nehruvian model talked about industrialization. They said one of the ways of India to move forward or to develop and to get people out of poverty is through large industries. Gandhi had a different approach. Gandhi talked about village industries. Gandhi said large industries will not work. And in all these negotiations, we came out with the large industries. The large industries today are working, but things are moving in a different direction in terms of personalization. We will see how there was a different model of Toyota which came in subsequently. Devpragya?
Yes, sir.
Aisha, customized products and services, actually, you're right. There were always a niche segment of customized products and services. Services was not there, customized products. But the fact is, the large stress was on industrial production of products. Everything came out to be same standardized. So anytime, as I said, any person walks into any McDonald's, any place in the world, you will get the same burger, same fries, same plate, same design. Depragya, I hope I was able to answer you.
Yes, sir. Yes. It was like very elaborate, and I get the hang of what we are talking about.
Great, great. As we go through further, you will a lot of other things will become clear. So
Yes, sir.
Taylorism was again. See, remember, Fordism and Taylorism were concept which was brought in to because industrialization was rolling out. Now, when industrialization was rolling out, people needed to make sense. And again, remember, we were already looking at capitalism. We were already looking at commercialization of everything, and then to increase efficiency, because capitalism, one of the tenets of capitalism is profit.
Hmm.
So that is why Fordism came in, that this is the way it is gone. Taylorism came about to look at better management, better efficiency, how we can, increase profits. Remember, in fact, in the next unit, we are talking about how this surplus gets generated, how this surplus leads to gross domestic product, and so on and so forth. So again, as I said, the objective of MDI 007 as, a larger block and all these units is to get you a taste of economics rather than get you to specialize in economics or anything, to get you a taste and to understand the larger process in which this labor thing work. And because remember, labor movement is what is migration. Most of the migration happens because of search for work. Depragya?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. My earphones came out, so okay. So the Fortis assembly line of production further encouraged the use of maximum machinery and specialization. Remember, the pressure or the focus was on machinery, specialization, and efficiency, which in turn intensified labor, leading to a new spate of increasing in workers' load. As I told you at the start, you will see the labor movement and the way labor works goes into a cyclic pattern. Increase skill, increase wages, depress wages, unionize, break unions. Similarly, the Taylorist practice took away whatever latent control the worker in the workplace vested in the management authority. Idea was to increase efficiency of production, leading to excess of surplus, leading to excess of profits production, the whole capitalist system. This is supposed to have caused degradation of labor, accentuated workers' sense of alienation. In fact, if you would have read, there was this 26-year-old female employee in Ernest Young who died. Initially, it was said she committed suicide, but it seems she had a heart attack. The pressure of work. Now there is a different pressure of work with Narayan Murthy coming and saying people should work 70 hours. Now these are norms which are created post-industrial revolution. In the industrial revolution, the norms were created to push labor to work physically. Now they are pushing labor to work intellectually. So somewhere down the line, things have changed. But somewhere down the line, things have remained the same. Industrialization drove away women from household workshops to factories, mines, and urban domestic service. And if you see how women workforce also changed, early mechanization required unskilled cheap workers to operate the machinery. Women and children were found perfectly suitable workers. Pragya, see, you know, uh, if you look at it, there is this old philosophy which says men is free but always in chains. So if you largely go into the philosophical part, it's a different thing. But when you look at the history, the economics, the way things move, as I said, a lot of times you will see there is a cyclical pattern. As I gave you the example of fashions, fashions will go out and they will come later. So a lot of times, a lot of people feel, say, for example, there was before the digital, there was something called LP records. There was a turntable used to play music on LP records. Incidentally, LP records are back. People are shunning digital to get back LP records because the music on LP record or analog is much more, high fidelity than digital. Digital loses a lot of information. So more often than not in world, everything becomes cyclic. What would be quite niche, not commercial? LP records, Aisha? No, in fact, LP records seem to be on a large scale. It is happening now in America and Europe. LP records seem to be making a comeback strongly. And inevitably, again, as I said, fashions also start in a niche. If you see fashion shows, you will see the kind of clothes that they are wearing, and you wonder who will wear such clothes. But then you suddenly realize that a lot of people are wearing those clothes. And one of the ways fashion becomes mainstream is cinema, as is technology, as are cultural practices. Today, a large part of cultural practices become mainstream through TikTok as a social media, through YouTube as a social media. So everything in remember the world is highly interconnected. We are and again today when you say it's scary, it's because information moves very fast. You get to know a lot of things in very micro detail. In earlier times, you didn't get to know. You never knew that in World War I or II, how many million people died. Today, because a pandemic comes and real time information comes, you feel scared. Otherwise, you would not even know. Okay, early mechanization required unskilled cheap labor. Women and children were found preferred. Again, women and children were found preferred because you could pay them less wages. They had nimble fingers. Earnings. They contributed to the household income. And I picked up this article from National Geography under social studies, economics, US history, world history. Women and children were often employed in textile industry. In fact, in India, still in a lot of places, say for example, the carpet manufacture, cracker industry, children are employed, nimble fingers. Plus, it helps to depress the wages because an adult male will take more wages rather than a child or a woman. So remember, there is the capitalist model of maximizing profits, but also remember, as the capitalist model matured, they brought in the component of ethics. But we have also seen in the 21st century, a lot of time ethics is taken for a toss to maximize profits. In fact, when we come to the next unit, MDI 9 and 10, which is of trafficking, human trafficking and migration, we will see because of cutting prices, maximizing profits, companies more often than use trafficked individuals, which is again a repetition of the slave trade. So As I said, history keeps repeating itself. Okay, 1800 to 1940 brought in through lasting transformation, not just business, but basic structures. Significant economic were small scale farming, artisan handicraft, which moved modern economic, new kind of gender and age-wise division of labor. And then simultaneously, there was a labor movement and social reforming. What happened in India too? Saw to it that the state imposed prohibitions on employment of children, encouraged schooling for them. They also realized the fact that education became important for skills to get for the people to get skills. Skills allowed for a better wages, better negotiation, and obviously, the technology was getting better, so you need better skills for which you require education. Women workers were confronted with the demand made by social reformers and male colleagues for restriction of employment. Now, also because now women were in a workforce where the wages were getting depressed by women, the males wanted women to be back in home so that their wage do not suffer. And then moralizing arguments were used, to put women back, at the same time pointing out that industrialization causes disorganization in family life of workers. You will see the same moralizing arguments today. What we saw in the 16th century or in the 19th century, we are seeing the same in the 21st century. ILO further promoted such idea of protection to women, benefits of humans, civilized life to working people, restriction of employment of children, received support from employers and legislators, the politics of it, especially in the period of depression, third quarter. So there's a period of depression, people are not getting their jobs. Now women and children are competing with men. So obviously the men would want the women and children to be out. This was pushing in the patriarchal culture. So cultures also move along with economics, sociology, politics. Consequently, women labor increasingly got concentrated in the poorly paid domestic service. Today, also, when we read about migration, more often than not, the caregiving sector is predominantly filled with women. And the caregiving sector and the domestic sector is not only unorganized, unregulated, it is, it is dominated by women, and they are normally exploited. Expansion of colonial rule in Western Europe, in Asia and Africa increases the size of the colonial labor. The colonial rule also replaced a polycentric political structure in the pre-colonial old world with a centralized military regime. So you see, there was a thing towards centralization. And now, if you look at the internet is again a very decentralized structure. So we moved from a decentralized into a centralized, and we are again moving into a decentralized world where there is no single power center. So history of human beings, history of the world is very cyclic. It keeps repeating itself. In fact, there is a serial called Tamas, and one of the tagline is, "Those who forget history are condemned to repeat it." And inevitably, human beings keep doing that. The colonial economy neither promoted textile export nor gave spur to modern growth, provide use of coerced labor, procure raw materials, control over colonial market, deindustrialization and peasantization of colonies. So for all that, song and dance, which the Western powers or the global South does in terms of development, this development was predominantly made on the global South, resources of the global South. So more often than not, whenever a Western scholar talks about the fact that this does not work in the global South, They forget the fact that there is a large, time of colonization, which actually put all the global south back by a few hundred years. It permitted to limit labor mobility by intervention, legal and extra-legal coercion, bargaining power of working people deteriorated. And then after the slave labor was banned, they brought in the indentured labor, again to work in their plantations. So you see, not only did they take the capital, they also exploited the labor. And this exploited capital and labor actually fueled the Industrial Revolution. The planter and the employee considered the use of indentured labor necessary, was subject to harsh conditions. What we see today in trafficking, in human trafficking, people are subject to harsh conditions. There is no protection, there is no regulation. So, for example, the Royal Commission of Labor in 3031 found, I think this is about India, two-thirds of the workers were indebted, cheap migrant workers who lived in unhealthy and crowded dwelling. We still see that, began to union themselves in 1819. A spate of collective protests like strikes took place, improving wages. So, again, you will see a lot of things are repeating. There is a lot of repetition. Wages increase, wages decrease, they unionize, then the unions go. The backward agriculture, persistent huge share in the national product. This is about India. Employment were emblematic of a colonial underdevelopment. But this story is not only about India, it's about all colonies in a way. Women workers formed about 1/4 of the industrial workforce till mid-20 in colonial India. Further lost industrial job to men competitors, partly because new laws related to night work, maternity benefit, restriction on hazardous work to be prohibitive. In fact, interestingly, the women rights movement in India, actually, women did not have to fight for their rights the way they fought in America. Indian women were always on the forefront with men during the freedom struggle, and they've continued to be on the forefront, irrespective of patriarchy and all the laws. Women have had a better lot in India than what they had in America, for example. Employers now regarded women labor inflexible, expensive. Women labor now further reinforced the presence in low-paid domestic service. Family life became further destabilized and irregular. So we are talking about the 1800 and 1940. Was referred that women frequently receive lower wages. Some of the conventions of ILO peddled the effect of such gender ideologies in the garb of protective. And that's where politics come in. More often than not, again, for example, I was reading in the publishing industry, a large part of the publishing industry is women workforce, but the higher management is all men. Look at the fact that in America, which has been independent and talked about democracy, it's only now that they are considering a women running for a president's post. And still there are reservations with a lot of people. The labor market was divided along lines of social identity, race, and ethnicity. These are all Indian. The slave and indentured labor were. This is again American, Europe. Slave market was black, brown, and yellow. They were classified as unskilled workers, paid low wages. White racism says black and Asian were intellectual, and inevitably, culture was used to justify their their colonization. For example, the Britishers more often than not used culture to say how Indians were inferior to the European races. Today, also, a lot of time, culture is used to justify the caste system. Remember, the higher caste came from the mind, and the lower caste came from the thigh of the mythical, god or mythical human being. Cultures are always used, or morality is always used to bring in the political ideology. That's the way it is. Colored people born of mixed parentage were considered suitable at best for semi-skilled. So inevitably, morality and culture was used. The untouchable considered. So, and this is how movement happened or migration happened. Untouchable considered urban and factory work as a betterment vis-a-vis the discrimination meted out in traditional rural setups. They joined labor movement, for example, in Kanpur to express twin desire, improvement in economic condition as well as self-respect and equality. So there is a famous Indian sociologist, M.N. Srinivasan, who talked about two terms, Sanskritization and Westernization. Sanskritization is a way where the lower caste perform rituals done by the higher caste to improve their caste status. Whereas Westernization is where the lower caste pick up Western culture to improve their caste status. So in labor movement, typically the lower caste found working in factories a betterment in terms of both economy and caste status. Because in a city, it is very difficult to maintain the caste system if you are working in a factory. Whereas if you are in a rural area, the caste system kicks in. Not that in the city, the caste system does not kick in, but it's very difficult to maintain. Then there was this period of national reconstruction and labor transformation. The world economy quickly recovered on the firm footing of Fordism, Taylorism, stable currency linked to gold standard, liberal trade and investment policy. The whole world started recovering after the world wars and the Great Depression. 30s, the Great Depression happened. Sorry, hang on. Where did it go? As I said, my screen and mouse both start behaving crazily. Hang on. Let me stop share, start share again. Okay. There was in city, there is capitalism. Capitalism, Aisha, is there in the rural areas also. The thing about profit motive, the thing about privatization, the thing about accumulation of capital. So there is, but the in a city, the caste system slightly dilutes. But again, what typically happens is when people migrate from rural areas, they inevitably tend to settle in same caste neighborhoods. So if you see in a city also today, there are neighborhoods which are defined based on caste. There are areas defined by caste. There are areas defined by, for example, if you see East Delhi or Northeast Delhi, there's a large population of Purvanchalis, and those are also defined by caste. Each mohalla defined by a caste. So caste becomes a predominant factor in India. Similarly, in the US, it's the race. You will have a separate area of which is Chinatown. There is a separate area where Indians are there or South Asians are there. There's a white area, there's a black area. So inevitably, it's a human thing. It's nothing to do with India or America or anything. It's a human thing. We tend to find, comfort in numbers, in identity, in people whom we feel as our own. So Fordism, Taylorism, socialist economy, newly independent made also certain strides in industrialization, harness the support of organized political labor. Now, this is where the third world or the global south had different problems because these were newly independent. They were grappling with politics, they were grappling with high population, they were grappling with underemployment, unemployment, sought to legislate mandate context for collective bargaining. Labor unions was a way. In fact, in the last unit, I showed you some of the movies of that time of the 70s with Amitabh Bachchan, where they were bringing about industries, where they were talking about labor unions, protection of workplace, 8-hour workday, weekly. So they were doing a collective bargaining. We are talking about the 40s and 70s. Women maintained wage work from the 40s, first under the compulsion of war, shortage of labor, then to raise the household. And war became a major catalyst of women workforce, especially in Europe. And the availability of new array of kitchen appliances provide the context in which found it manageable to bear double responsibility of wage work and housemaking. So now you see how technology matches up with your society or social need and your economy. Things don't just happen. They happen to follow how the society moves. Labor was much more complicated in newly independent countries or third worlds. Class of land owning substantial farmer organized themselves. So if you see, initially the Indian National Congress was typically high caste landowners. And if you see today also, when you look at the political class, you will see a large part of the political class which are landowners, high caste, rich. In fact, the Mandal Commission did major realignment onto the caste status. And then the OBCs came in, the backward caste came in. Wage works relies on social networking, including family, kin, and village ties in the striving for survival. Still happens. Working people face dramatic changes. 70s to 80s, they were asking for improvement of wages, social wage. So 70s to 80s, remember, are the two films of Amitabh Bachchan, Namak Haram and Diwar, where they're talking about industrial work, unions, union negotiation. And in fact, in the 90s, with liberalization, everything collapsed. The headline, in fact, has been given in the 80s to 2010, the neoliberal era and working life, substituted 40s industrial practices known as mass production into vertical integration, monetized intervention, and Toyotism. Toyotism is the model of Toyota, which is just in line, just in time, constant and immediate communication, customer client. No inventory, all the factories come in together. Look at the Maruti workflows, all their ancillary industries are in the neighborhood. So Taylorism and Fordism moved into Toyotism, which came out of Japan. And it started using ICT, information communication technology, downsized workforce, deterritorialized production. Now the computer operator combined the functions of overseer and machine operators. And now we are suddenly seeing 80s onwards, there's a large integration or large focus on computerization. And we will see how this digitalization started moving things in a totally different, in an individualized, personalized direction. So from a standardized industry line kind of a scenario with mass production, it has moved to individualized, personalized, niche kind of production. Neoliberal governments came into control of state power, hostility towards power labor unions. We are talking about the 90s. And across the world, it started with Thatcher becoming the prime minister, privatizing all nationalized thing, break the labor unions. These are neoliberal thing. Dramatic expansion of service sector occurred, dwarfed manufacturing sector, workers performing effective labor and made immaterial forms of production such as feeling of ease, passion, excitement, satisfaction, comfort, and life. So the whole thing has shifted from products into services. So now you wonder, are the products not being made? The products are made, but not in the industrial, large industries or conveyor lines. We are already out of time. Let me just quickly, there are 2 slides. Hang on. Let me move this. New rules of game for labor, social networking of kin and friendship in an effort to access wages, work, and habitation. The workers are still learning the new art of collecting, what we call now as the gig economy. So if you see in the gig economy, there are these individual workers, let's say Zomato, Uber, but we are still seeing now that these guys are going on strike, trying to unionize. Amazon does not allow unions, but the worker. So we are again seeing a repetition where the workers are trying to unionize and collectively negotiate with the company. Almost a repetition. Summing up, labor power commodified in multiple ways, emergence and progress of free labor, linear trajectory of constant. Nor was there any linear trajectory of constant advancement of working class. Labor practices and trajectory were intrinsically interlinked. There are some, references. Hobsbawm. So, in case you need the slide, you can send me a mail. Hang on. If you want to need the presentation, send me a mail. I am not sure whether you've got the unit, but if you have not got, you will get the unit. Any questions? I kind of hurried up in the end. Hi. Quick questions. We are already out of time. The SLM actually packs a lot into this unit, but don't get bogged down with specificities. Understand the large part about how things moved in various eras historically, and also understand the fact that the unit has been written looking at the economics of it rather than the sociology or the anthropology or the media. Media has a very important role. Media mirrors the society at the same time, uh, uh, you know, uh, gets the society to look at something new. So it has a very symbiotic relationship. And all of these contribute to have the changes which are happening. In fact, changes are happening so fast today that more often than not, if you are not a nimble worker, today, in fact, sometimes a super specialization becomes a redundant thing because the whole thing changes. Say, for example, let's say you are a creative guy, you are a graphic designer, and suddenly AI is coming and no graphic designer are used. Any person can use a AI app and do graphic designing. So unless today as a skill you are able to be nimble and to be able to pick up new skills, it becomes a very difficult workforce. I was just reading that all these tech companies are laying off employees now with artificial intelligence coming in, robotics are coming in. You have looked at a particular skill, that skill becomes redundant before you realize it. Okay, any question? I think everybody has taken, there are too many things to take in. So in case you need the presentation, please, very few professionals will be under. Absolutely. In fact, Aisha, everything which is repetitive will be the first to go because AI will take it. So what you need will be people to, today in the third world, there are all these people who data enter at per hour job to put in data entry for these AI systems to work. That's a new job. If you want the PPT, you can send me a mail to damn, this keyboard is crazy. I'm just typing in my mail so that meeting group chat, you can, in case you send me a mail, I can send you the PPT. Yeah. So I'll have a nice week. We'll meet next Saturday at 3 o'clock. I will do unit 5 where we are talking about how some economic concept. Again, as I said, don't get stuck on the economics part of it. Understand the larger part in terms of perspective, because remember, it's the labor which migrates. A large part of migration is because of people are looking out for work, and when labor is moving this way, and leading to resultant changes of social or society, there'll be a large migration. Okay. So have a nice weekend, have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next time. And my mouse has again gone for a toss. Bye, guys. Let me figure out how to stop this.